Dr. Evelyn Carter wiped the sweat from her brow as she stared at the relic before her, its surface pulsing faintly with a blue glow. The ice around the object had been so thick that it had taken weeks to excavate it, but now, with it exposed to the air, the ground beneath her feet seemed to hum in resonance. The relic was unlike anything she'd ever seen, neither metal nor stone, yet shimmering with an ethereal, almost organic glow. Its smooth, curved surface seemed to defy the cold, as if the harsh Antarctic winds could not touch it. She took a step closer, and the temperature dropped even further. A chill ran down her spine. The relic had a presence, one that filled her with a sense of awe and trepidation. It was alive somehow. As she placed her hand against it, a shock of energy shot through her, and her vision blurred. In an instant, she was no longer in the stark cold of Antarctica, but standing on a distant alien world, surrounded by towering structures of crystal and light. Giant beings, humanoid yet otherworldly, moved about in calm unison, their eyes gleaming with intelligence far beyond human understanding. A voice echoed in her mind, deep and ancient. We were the architects of the stars. We were the dreamers who brought peace to the galaxy. And now, the time has come for you to awaken what we left behind. Suddenly, the vision fractured, and she was back in the cold, her fingers still pressed against the relic. She gasped, stumbling backward. The ground around the relic began to rumble, and before she could react, a pulse of energy shot out from the object, illuminating the sky in a blinding flash. The rumbling grew louder, as though the entire world was shaking in response. "What in God's name?" Evelyn muttered, her voice trembling. She looked around to see her team scattered in a frenzy. The excavation site, once calm, was now alive with energy. Some of the workers stumbled, dazed by the surge of power. Others ran for cover, instinctively trying to escape the growing chaos. The sky above darkened as a massive storm front approached, swirling with unnatural speed. Evelyn's heart raced as she realized the danger. This wasn't just some archaeological discovery, it was something far greater. Something had awakened. "Evelyn!" shouted Dr. Raj Patel, one of her colleagues, rushing toward her through the growing winds. "We need to get out of here. This is going to tear the base apart." But Evelyn couldn't tear her eyes away from the relic. The energy it was emitting wasn't just disruptive. It was calling out, like a signal, to something or someone far beyond their world. It was as if the relic knew they were there, and in some deep, forgotten part of her, Evelyn knew that humanity's fate was now tied to it. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open, sending a shockwave of heat and light through the ice. The team scrambled, but the tremors were too much. A deafening roar filled the air, and in the distance, something huge, something impossibly fast, streaked across the sky. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she saw a shadow in the clouds, a dark shape moving too quickly to be a plane, too large to be anything human-made. "Get to the shelters," Raj yelled, pulling her away. But Evelyn wasn't listening. She was already moving toward the edge of the crater that had opened up around the relic, drawn in by an irresistible pull. She had no idea what had just been unleashed, but she knew this was only the beginning. And somewhere, deep in the vastness of space, a voice that had been silent for millennia began to stir once more. "The time has come. Humanity shall rise." The storm raged around them, fierce and unnatural. The icy winds whipped against Evelyn's face, but she hardly noticed. Her thoughts were consumed by the relic and the strange vision she had experienced. She had felt the pulse of its energy, the weight of the message it carried. Something ancient, something beyond their understanding, was awakening, and humanity was somehow a part of it. As Evelyn stumbled through the snow, trying to regain her bearings, she glanced at the sky. The dark shape she had seen moments ago was gone, but the unease it had left in her was not. Her instincts screamed that this wasn't just an accident. Something or someone had been waiting for this moment. "Evelyn, we need to get to the shelter," Raj urged again, his voice muffled by the howling wind. He gripped her arm, but she pulled away. "No," she said, shaking her head, her breath coming in rapid bursts. "Something's coming. Something we're not ready for." Raj frowned, clearly confused and worried. "What are you talking about? We're in the middle of a freak storm. We're not safe out here." Evelyn turned to face him, her expression determined. "This storm, it's not natural, and I'm not leaving until we understand what's happening." Raj opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, the ground beneath them rumbled again, more violently this time. The ice cracked with a sound like thunder, and a deep, resonating hum filled the air. The relic, now resting in the center of the excavation site, seemed to glow brighter than before, as if reacting to the disturbance. A low, mechanical whine echoed from the sky. Evelyn's gaze snapped upward just in time to see the massive shadow reappear, far larger than before. The object was descending, its form now unmistakably that of a ship, an enormous, sleek craft with alien markings, gliding effortlessly through the chaotic winds. Its hull was like polished black metal, reflecting the strange glow of the relic beneath it. "Evelyn, we need to move," Raj urged, but Evelyn was already in motion, racing toward the epicenter of the excavation. She knew that whatever was in that ship, whatever had sent that pulse of energy across the world, was not here by chance. The relic had activated something, and she was sure the ship had been waiting for this signal. It wasn't just a discovery, it was a beacon. As she reached the edge of the crater, she stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. The ship was hovering now, just above the snow-covered ground, its engine noise nearly deafening. The wind died down, as if the craft had somehow controlled the storm, leaving only a tense silence. And then, without warning, the ship's hatch opened. A figure emerged, standing tall and regal, silhouetted against the dim light of the storm. The figure's appearance was not human, not entirely. It was humanoid, but the features were sharper, more angular, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver. Its eyes gleamed with a piercing light, and its presence radiated an aura of immense power and authority. "Dr. Evelyn Carter," the figure spoke, its voice calm, but carrying an unspoken weight. It was not a question, but a declaration. "We have been waiting for you." Evelyn's mind raced. How could this being know her name? Was this one of the ancient civilizations the relic had shown her, or was it something else, something even older, more powerful? Before she could respond, the figure spoke again. "You have awakened the legacy of your ancestors. Now, you must choose. Will you embrace the power you have uncovered, or will you allow it to consume you?" Evelyn stood frozen, her heart pounding. She could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on her. Her hand hovered over the relic, and for a moment, she was torn. Could humanity handle what was coming? Could she? She began, but the figure raised a hand, silencing her. "The choice is not yours alone," it said. "There are others who will come, and they will not wait for your answer." With a final, lingering glance at the relic, the being turned and began to walk back toward the ship, its steps deliberate and sure. Raj, who had been standing in stunned silence, finally found his voice. "Evelyn, what just happened? Who was that?" Evelyn stood motionless, her mind reeling. I think humanity is about to discover just how much it's been forgotten." The ship's engines powered up once more, and with a final deafening roar, it ascended into the sky, disappearing into the clouds as quickly as it had arrived. The storm, now just a whisper, faded with it. Evelyn turned to Raj, her expression hardening. "The real journey is just beginning." Evelyn stood frozen, staring at the sky where the alien craft had vanished, the sound of its engines still echoing in her mind. The weight of the being's words pressed down on her, heavy and foreboding. "You have awakened the legacy of your ancestors." What did it mean? Who were these ancestors? And what was the legacy they had left behind? And why was humanity being drawn into something so vast, so far beyond their understanding? "Evelyn," Raj's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. He was pacing beside her, glancing nervously at the now still relic. What just happened? Who were they? She blinked, shaking her head as though to clear the fog that had descended. I don't know, Raj. I don't even know if I want to know. He gave her a baffled look. What do you mean? This is beyond anything we've ever encountered. That ship, those beings, they're not from Earth. This is beyond comprehension. She finished for him, her voice quiet. Yes, I know. The words hung in the cold air, the weight of them thickening the silence between them. Evelyn's mind was racing, but there was one thing she was certain of. The encounter was no accident. The relic had activated for a reason, and now humanity had been thrust into a conflict that had been centuries, perhaps millennia, in the making. As if on cue, the sound of a distant explosion shattered the stillness. The ground beneath them vibrated once again, but this time it wasn't the relic. Evelyn turned sharply, her heart skipping a beat, as she realized the source of the disturbance was coming from the base camp. We need to get back, Raj said, his voice tinged with panic. That explosion, there's no way it's just a coincidence. Evelyn nodded, her instincts kicking in. The ship's departure wasn't the end. It had been the catalyst. Whatever was happening was just beginning, and they needed to understand what role humanity played in this awakening. The two of them sprinted back toward the base camp, the snow crunching underfoot as they navigated the rough terrain. When they reached the edge of the camp, the scene was chaos. Several of the research tents were torn open, with flames licking at the edges of the wreckage. The base's communication tower was bent at an impossible angle, twisted and broken, as if something had slammed into it with unimaginable force. Damn it! Raj cursed, running toward the nearest tent. We need to get to the command center. They'll know what to do. Evelyn didn't answer. Her attention was fixed on something else, the strange energy still radiating from the relic. Even from this distance, she could feel it. It pulsed in time with the lingering hum in the air, vibrating through her bones. She didn't know why, but she couldn't tear her gaze away. Then something happened that sent a shiver down her spine. A low rumble echoed from beneath the ground, followed by a sharp cracking sound. The relic, which had been dormant since the ship's departure, now glowed brighter, its energy fluctuating wildly. Evelyn, Raj shouted, pulling her toward the shelter. We need to get inside now. She didn't fight him this time. They ran toward the command center, the doors still intact despite the chaos surrounding them. Once inside, Evelyn was hit with the overwhelming sense of urgency. Military personnel were already scrambling to assess the damage, while researchers huddled around their monitors, trying to make sense of what was happening. Dr. Carter, you need to see this, a voice called out from across the room. It was Colonel Samuel Lee, the officer in charge of their security detail. Evelyn moved quickly to his side, her heart pounding in her chest. On the large screen in front of them was a live feed from the satellite network. At first, the image was grainy and unclear, but it quickly focused on a massive, storm-like anomaly swirling over the southern hemisphere of the Earth. It's a phenomenon we've never seen before, Lee said, his voice tense. It appeared just moments after the relic activated. We've traced it to several points of interest, military installations, major research centers, and the relic site? Evelyn interrupted, her voice sharp. Lee nodded grimly. Yes. We believe the energy from the relic triggered something across the globe. It's not just a storm, it's a signal, and we think it's reaching something or someone. The screen shifted, now showing a map with various blinking red dots indicating energy spikes around the world. This is bigger than we thought, Rav said, his face pale. The relic didn't just send a message to that ship. It's calling out to others, and I think it's only a matter of time before they answer. Evelyn felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Arctic winds outside. The legacy her ancestors had left behind was not just a gift, it was a warning. And humanity was standing on the precipice of something far more dangerous than they could possibly comprehend. The tide was shifting, and the world was about to change. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Colonel Lee had ordered an immediate lockdown of the base, sealing the perimeter and restricting all communications with the outside world. Evelyn could feel the tension in the air, as if everyone knew they were on the cusp of something monumental, something that would change the course of history. But no one knew what that something was, and the uncertainty gnawed at her. "Evelyn, we need to get to the vault," Raj said, his voice low but insistent as he approached her in the command center. His expression was grim, his eyes reflecting the same sense of urgency she felt in her gut. She glanced at the large display again, watching the global energy map flicker as the red dots continued to blink on the screen. The phenomenon over the southern hemisphere had expanded, covering a larger portion of the planet's surface. It wasn't just a storm, it was a signal, and it was getting stronger by the minute. "The vault?" Evelyn asked, brow furrowing. "What are you talking about?" Raj glanced over his shoulder, ensuring no one was listening, before he leaned in closer. "I've been digging into some of the more obscure files from the old archaeological team. There are rumors of an ancient repository hidden beneath the ice for centuries, built by the very civilization that created the relic. It contains knowledge that's far beyond anything we've ever encountered." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. "Are you suggesting that whatever triggered the relic has something to do with this vault?" Raj nodded. "Exactly. If we don't get there before whatever this is reaches full strength, humanity may not survive what's coming next. The vault could hold the key to understanding what we're dealing with." She didn't hesitate. Without a word, she grabbed her coat and headed for the exit. The relic had already sent out its signal, and there was no turning back now. The vault had to be their next move. The storm outside had died down, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. The visibility was still poor, but the swirling winds had subsided enough to allow for the safe transport of personnel. Evelyn and Raj made their way toward the base's transport vehicles, accompanied by a small security detail. The journey to the vault was treacherous, winding through jagged ice and snowfields, but Evelyn's mind was already racing, consumed with the possibility that the answers they sought lay beneath the frozen ground. As they neared the coordinates Raj had uncovered, the atmosphere seemed to grow thicker, as if the very air itself was charged with electricity. Evelyn's breath came in short, nervous bursts, and her fingers gripped the relic tightly. She could feel its pulse, its energy, as if it were calling to something below. A low hum, barely audible, resonated in her chest. "We're close," Raj said, his voice tight. He glanced around nervously, scanning the desolate, snow-covered landscape. Evelyn didn't need him to tell her. She could feel it too, the pull towards something ancient, something buried deep beneath the ice. She had no idea what they were about to uncover, but she knew one thing for certain: the stakes had just risen exponentially. The transport vehicles came to a halt in front of a massive cliff face, the ice and rock seemingly impenetrable, but Evelyn knew better. She had seen the ancient schematics in Raj's files, the ones that outlined the location of the vault. The cliff was a facade. There was a hidden entrance. Raj worked quickly, using the equipment they had brought with them to scan the area. After a few tense moments, a soft click echoed in the otherwise silent air. The ground trembled slightly, and then, with a grinding of stone and ice, the cliff face parted. A dark passageway was revealed, leading downward into the earth. Evelyn's heart raced. She could feel the relic's energy now, pulsing more strongly as they descended into the depths. This was it, the heart of the mystery. Whatever lay beneath the ice, whatever power the vault held, it was waiting for them. The group moved through the narrow passage, the air growing colder with each step. The walls were lined with strange symbols, not unlike those on the relic, though far more intricate. They were unfamiliar, their meaning unclear. Yet, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The sense of unease that had settled over her since the alien craft's departure had only grown stronger. The passage finally opened into a vast underground chamber, illuminated by an eerie, pale light. In the center of the room stood a massive stone structure, its surface covered in carvings that seemed to move, shifting as if alive. The energy in the room was palpable, thick, and almost suffocating. This is it, Raj breathed, awe in his voice. Evelyn took a cautious step forward, her eyes wide. The vault wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was a weapon, ancient and powerful, designed to protect or destroy. A voice, low and ancient, echoed through the chamber, reverberating in her mind. You have awakened us, the legacy of your people. Now you must decide, will you use it, or will you be consumed by it? The choice, it seemed, was hers. The voice resonated through the vault like 1,000 whispers in unison, its tone ancient and laden with power. Evelyn froze, the words crashing into her consciousness with an intensity that felt like it was ripping through the very fabric of her thoughts. You have awakened us, the legacy of your people. Now you must decide, will you use it, or will you be consumed by it? Evelyn's pulse quickened as she scanned the room, her heart hammering in her chest. The walls around her seemed to close in, the strange shifting carvings on the stone surface pulsating with an eerie glow, their meanings eluding her. Raj stood beside her, his eyes wide with awe, but even he seemed uncertain of what was happening. Did you hear that? Raj whispered, his voice tight with disbelief. Evelyn nodded slowly, unable to tear her gaze away from the central structure. It was no longer just an artifact. It was alive, or at least it felt alive. There was a presence within the vault, a consciousness that had waited for centuries, perhaps millennia, for humanity to reach this point. I don't know what this means, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. But it's clear that whatever this is, it's tied to our survival. The voice echoed again, its resonance vibrating through her bones. The power of your ancestors is in your hands. Use it wisely, for the consequences of misuse are far-reaching. Raj stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the central structure. We need to understand what this is. If this is the legacy the aliens warned us about, then we're facing something far beyond anything we've ever encountered. Evelyn could feel the weight of his words, but there was more, an undercurrent of fear that tugged at the back of her mind. The relic, the vault, the strange presence that seemed to be watching them. It all pointed to something far more dangerous. Humanity wasn't just involved in a scientific discovery anymore. They had stumbled upon a force that had the potential to shape the future of the entire galaxy. I think we need to open it, Evelyn said, her voice steady, though her mind was anything but calm. We need to understand what this power is before we make any decisions. We're running out of time. Raj hesitated, glancing back at the rest of the team, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone knew that the stakes had never been higher. Humanity had been thrust into a galactic struggle it didn't fully understand, and the ancient legacy of their ancestors was the key to whether they would survive or be destroyed. All right, Raj said after a long pause, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. Let's open it. The two of them approached the central structure. It was massive, with intricate symbols and lines etched into its surface. Evelyn reached out slowly, her fingers brushing against the cold stone. As soon as she made contact, a surge of energy shot through her, unlike anything she had ever experienced. The stone pulsed with warmth, and the carvings began to shift, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, and the massive stone slab at the center of the vault began to rise. It slid upward with an ease that seemed impossible, revealing a glowing sphere of translucent material, suspended in midair by an invisible force. The voice returned, deep and resonant. You have unlocked the legacy. Now choose your path. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as the sphere began to glow brighter, its light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. It was unlike any technology she had ever encountered. The energy radiating from it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "This is it," Raj whispered, his eyes fixed on the sphere. "The power your ancestors left behind. It could be the answer to everything, our survival, the future of the galaxy." But Evelyn's thoughts were clouded by the ominous tone of the voice. "Choose wisely." She took a step back, trying to clear her mind. There was a temptation to reach out, to claim the power for herself, for humanity. But in that moment, Evelyn understood the gravity of the choice before her. This was more than just a relic. This was a weapon, one that could tip the balance of the galaxy. "Raj," Evelyn said, her voice trembling, "we don't know what this power is capable of. It could either save us or destroy everything." Ray's gaze was steady, though a hint of fear lingered in his eyes. "We don't have a choice, Evelyn. The aliens, whatever they are, made it clear. We can't ignore this." Evelyn turned her attention back to the glowing sphere. She had always believed humanity was capable of greatness, of creating a future that could surpass all expectations. But the power in front of her felt like something that could change the very nature of existence itself. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "You stand at the crossroads of destiny. Choose the path that leads to salvation or destruction." For a moment, Evelyn hesitated, her hand hovering over the sphere. She could feel its power calling to her, but she knew that no matter what decision she made, it would come with consequences. The future of humanity and the galaxy was at stake. She inhaled deeply, her mind made up. "We take it," Evelyn said firmly, her voice unwavering. And with that decision, she reached forward, her fingers brushing the surface of the glowing sphere. The vault trembled as the ancient power surged around her, awakening to the touch of humanity once more. The moment Evelyn's fingers made contact with the glowing sphere, a jolt of energy shot through her, more intense than anything she had ever felt. It was as though the very essence of the universe itself was flowing through her, its raw power both exhilarating and terrifying. The vault trembled around her, its ancient stones reverberating with the force of the awakening. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing in rhythm with the sphere's energy. For a moment, Evelyn lost herself in the surge. The world around her became a blur, the sounds of her team's anxious whispers distant echoes. She could hear the hum of the power intensifying, feeling it reverberate in her chest, in her very bones. The chamber was no longer just a room. It was alive, a conduit for something far beyond human understanding. Then, just as suddenly, the energy dissipated, leaving her breathless and disoriented. She stumbled backward, her vision swimming. Raj caught her arm, steadying her. "Evelyn, are you okay?" he asked urgently, his face etched with concern. Evelyn nodded slowly, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She could still feel the lingering pulse of the sphere in her veins, the power of it still coursing through her. But her mind was spinning, struggling to process what had just happened. The sphere, now dimmer but still glowing faintly, hovered in the center of the vault. A low, harmonic hum filled the room, like a voice speaking just beyond the threshold of understanding. Evelyn's eyes locked onto it again, an overwhelming sense of urgency flooding her senses. "Look," Rad said, pointing toward the sphere. "Something's happening." The surface of the sphere rippled, and then, like liquid metal, it began to shift. The smooth, translucent surface fractured into swirling patterns, each symbol and line glowing brighter as they moved. For a moment, the chamber was alive with the light of 1,000 stars, and Evelyn's heart raced as she realized what was unfolding before her. The relic wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was an interface, a bridge to something far more profound. Suddenly, a holographic projection emerged from the sphere, casting an image in midair. It was a star map, a cosmic blueprint of the galaxy, but there were markings, ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The map showed vast networks of interstellar routes, some of which were unknown, and others that had long been abandoned. Lines of energy connected distant stars, creating a web of knowledge that spanned the entire universe. Evelyn's mind raced as she studied the projections. The relic wasn't just about human history. It was the key to understanding the galactic legacy of their ancestors. Whoever had created this vault, whoever had designed the relic, had once ruled over the stars. Raj, this is, Evelyn whispered, unable to find the words. This is beyond anything we could have imagined. Raj's voice trembled. It's a map of the lost civilizations of the galaxy, the ones who came before us. Evelyn's thoughts flickered to the voice that had spoken earlier, the one that had warned them. Now you must decide. What was it warning them about, and what had they just unlocked? The projection shifted again, this time showing a dark, foreboding planet at the edge of the galaxy. It was marked with a symbol that Evelyn recognized from the relic, the same emblem that had been etched into the walls of the vault. This planet was no mere outpost or colony. It was the heart of something ancient, something powerful. Is that? Raj began, his voice strained. The homeworld of the beings who left this behind. Evelyn's pulse quickened. The thought was chilling. If this planet held the answers, then they were staring into the face of a forgotten empire, a civilization that had once wielded unimaginable power. We have to go there, Evelyn said, her voice firm with newfound determination. Whatever this is, whatever we've awakened, we need to understand it. If we don't, we might be too late to stop whatever's coming. Raj hesitated, his eyes flicking between Evelyn and the map. Are you sure? This could be more dangerous than we realize. I'm sure, Evelyn said, her mind already made up. We've already crossed the threshold. The fate of humanity depends on what we do next. We need to find out who, or what, created this relic. The holographic map zoomed in on the dark planet, the symbol growing more vivid and menacing. The sphere hummed again, the energy around them intensifying as the relic seemed to sense their resolve. Suddenly, the voice returned, this time not as a warning, but as a command. The path is set. The legacy is yours to carry. Prepare yourselves, for the journey will be fraught with peril. Evelyn exchanged a glance with Raj, her resolve solidifying. The voice had spoken the truth. They were no longer just uncovering the past. They were stepping into a future they hadn't prepared for. One that was filled with ancient powers, forgotten secrets, and dangers that could change the galaxy forever. Let's go, Evelyn said, turning toward the exit of the vault. We have a journey ahead of us. The answers are out there. As they made their way out of the chamber, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the universe was watching them, that whatever power they had awakened would either lead them to salvation or to their destruction. The journey to the dark planet took longer than Evelyn had anticipated, and the weight of the unknown pressed heavily upon her. The starship hummed beneath their feet, the engines pushing them deeper into uncharted space. Yet, no matter how much distance they put between themselves and the vault, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, that some unseen force was trailing them, waiting for them to make the first move. Raj sat beside her at the command console, his brow furrowed in concentration as he studied the readings on the control panel. The trajectory they were on was set, but the space around them was vast and unforgiving. They were headed toward a place that shouldn't exist, a place whose very presence in the galaxy defied all known science. I've been running simulations, Raj said, his voice strained. The readings from the star map don't add up. There's something off about the planet. It's like it's been hidden, deliberately obscured from every known map of the galaxy. Evelyn nodded, her gaze fixed on the screen ahead. The planet was out there, somewhere in the darkness. And whatever it held, whatever secrets it guarded, was the key to understanding the legacy they had awakened. We're getting closer, she said, trying to steady her nerves. Keep an eye on those readings, Raj. We can't afford any surprises. The ship's sensors began to flicker, the data coming in sporadically. It was as if the planet itself was interfering with their instruments, distorting the very fabric of space around it. There was no sign of any hostile forces, no fleet lying in wait, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting. The voice from the relic had warned them. The path is set. The legacy is yours to carry. Prepare yourselves, for the journey will be fraught with peril. As the planet came into view, it was like looking into a blackened abyss. The planet's surface was shrouded in a perpetual storm, thick clouds swirling with lightning that arced across the sky in chaotic bursts. The atmosphere was dense, and the planet itself seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as though it were alive, watching them approach. "This doesn't feel right," Raj muttered, his fingers tapping nervously on the console. "The energy signature, it's not natural. It's almost like the planet is trying to communicate with us." Evelyn stood, her gaze locked on the storm-ridden world. The closer they got, the more the air inside the ship seemed to crackle with static. It was as if the planet was calling to them, beckoning them into its depths. "We're too far in to turn back now," Evelyn said, her voice calm despite the unease gnawing at her. "We'll land and figure out what's going on." The ship descended into the planet's atmosphere, the turbulence increasing as they fought against the storm. The hull groaned under the strain, but Evelyn refused to show any signs of doubt. This was their mission, whatever the cost. The galaxy's fate rested on what they would find here. The ship finally broke through the thick clouds, and Evelyn gasped. Below them, ancient structures jutted from the landscape, monolithic towers and sprawling ruins that seemed to have once been part of a grand civilization. The planet was not just a forgotten world. It was a graveyard of forgotten glory, a silent testament to a race that had once commanded the stars. As the ship touched down on the barren ground, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. The air was thick, suffocating, as if the very atmosphere of the planet was pressing in on them. Evelyn could see the faint outlines of strange figures moving in the distance, shadows that flitted between the ancient ruins just out of clear sight. "Stay alert," Evelyn said, her voice low but resolute. "Whatever's here, we're not alone." The crew began preparing their equipment, their nerves taut with anticipation. But as they stepped out of the ship and onto the planet's surface, Evelyn couldn't help but feel as though they were being watched. Every movement seemed to echo in the silence, the stillness of the planet pressing in from all sides. The ruins stretched out before them, a labyrinth of stone and mystery, with an undeniable pull that seemed to call them deeper into its heart. They advanced, cautiously, through the narrow paths between towering columns and shattered walls. Every step felt like they were unraveling an ancient puzzle, the answers slipping through their fingers just out of reach. Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something ancient here, something powerful, and it was beginning to stir. "Over there," Rab said, pointing toward a massive structure in the distance. It was different from the others, larger, more intact. The symbol from the relic was etched into its surface, glowing faintly as if it recognized them. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. The planet's secrets were waiting, and they were about to unlock them. But as they approached the structure, a voice, soft and insistent, echoed in her mind. "You have come far, but the price of knowledge is always high." Evelyn's hand instinctively went to the relic that hung around her neck. The power it held was undeniable, but would it be enough to protect them from what lay ahead? "We're not turning back now," Evelyn said, more to herself than to anyone else. "Let's finish this." They moved forward, the ancient structure looming ahead, ready to reveal its secrets. But with each step, Evelyn could feel the weight of the past pressing down on them. The legacy of the ancients was about to reveal itself, and its price would soon become clear. The entrance to the structure was a towering archway, flanked by statues of beings whose features were alien to Evelyn, their eyes vacant but knowing, as if they had seen the rise and fall of civilizations long before humanity had even discovered the stars. The air around the entrance shimmered with energy, and Evelyn's pulse quickened. The relic around her neck thrummed in response, as if attuned to the same force. "Are you ready?" Raj asked, his voice tense as he adjusted the settings on his visor. His unease mirrored Evelyn's, but they had come this far. The answers they sought were just beyond the archway. Evelyn nodded, her expression resolute. "We don't have a choice. Whatever's inside, we need to understand it." The crew moved cautiously, stepping into the shadow of the entrance. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air shifted. It was cooler here, the energy denser, and the wall seemed to close in around them. The structure was a cavernous hall, its stonework ancient and perfectly preserved, covered in strange, luminous inscriptions. They glowed softly, casting an eerie light that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a heartbeat. "This place," Raj whispered, his voice reverberating in the stillness. "It's alive in a way. These symbols, they're not just decoration. They're a language." Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes tracing the intricate designs etched into the stone. As she moved, the symbols began to shift, rearranging themselves into patterns that seemed to respond to her presence. The relic at her neck pulsed again, a faint hum vibrating through the stone beneath her fingertips. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A deep, resonant hum echoed through the chamber, and the symbols on the walls flared to life, illuminating the space with blinding light. The ceiling above seemed to recede, revealing an enormous crystalline structure that hung suspended in midair, its facets reflecting the energy that now filled the room. At the center of the chamber, a massive dais rose from the floor, and upon it lay a figure unlike any human, but eerily humanoid in shape. It was encased in a crystalline tomb, its form perfectly preserved despite the eons that had passed. Its eyes were closed, but Evelyn could feel its presence, its consciousness lingering in the air. This is it," Raj murmured, his voice full of awe. "This is the source." Evelyn's heart raced as she approached the dais. The figure was unmistakably ancient, but there was something familiar about it, something that resonated deep within her. The relic around her neck pulsed once more, and suddenly she understood. This was the being who had left the relic behind, the one who had shaped the galaxy long before humanity had come into existence. And now, Evelyn stood at the threshold of its legacy. As her fingers hovered over the surface of the crystalline tomb, a voice filled her mind, a voice as ancient as the stars themselves. "You have awakened the past, and with it, the power to reshape the future. But know this, child of the stars, the legacy you seek is not without its cost." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The voice was not just in her mind, it was in the very air, in the walls, in the ground beneath her feet. It was the voice of the ancients, and it had been waiting for them. The power to command the galaxy, to rule over the stars, it comes with a price. You will wield the power of creation and destruction, but it will never be without sacrifice. The temperature in the chamber dropped suddenly, the air heavy with foreboding. Evelyn's mind raced as the weight of the warning settled over her. The relic had unlocked a power beyond comprehension, but at what cost? What would be required of them to wield it? Raj's voice broke the silence. What? What do you mean? What's the price?" The figure on the dais stirred, its crystalline tube beginning to crack. The symbols on the walls flared with blinding intensity, and Evelyn felt a surge of energy rise from the core of the structure, filling her with an overwhelming sense of both awe and terror. "The price is the burden of the legacy," the voice continued, its tone reverberating through the chamber. "You must choose whether to carry the power that has been entrusted to you. You must decide what kind of ruler you will be, for the power to command the stars is a burden few can bear. And if you fail, if you are not worthy, the galaxy will fall into ruin." The figure's eyes snapped open, and for a moment, Evelyn saw a flash of ancient wisdom and endless sorrow in its gaze. The figure spoke again, this time directly to her. You are the heir to this legacy, child of humanity. Will you rise to fulfill your destiny, or will you let the stars fall into darkness? The chamber seemed to pulse in anticipation, the energy swirling around them, waiting for an answer. Evelyn stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She had always known that the path they had taken would lead to a reckoning, but now, standing before the source of the galaxy's greatest legacy, the reality of the choice before her hit like a physical blow. The relic pulsed in her hand, and Evelyn knew that the decision had to be made, not just for her, but for the future of humanity and the galaxy. The power to change everything was within her grasp, but so was the risk of losing it all. Whatever it takes, Evelyn whispered, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. I'll carry it. I won't let the galaxy fall. The figure on the dais nodded slowly, its crystalline form beginning to disintegrate, as if it had been waiting for her decision. The energy in the room surged, and Evelyn felt herself connected to the galaxy in a way she had never imagined, like the very fabric of the universe had opened up to her, ready to be shaped by her will. The legacy of the ancients was now hers to command, and with it the future of humanity would be rewritten. But the price of that power had already been paid.